want to thank you guys for joining me for today's Coffee with Keisha. We have an awesome lesson prepared, and we're going to just jump right into it. What I've titled today's message is Spring Has Sprung. Now, a lot of us are familiar with that, but we're going to break it down. So when you leave today, you're going to have a whole different perspective of what spring should really be about. You know, when we think about the month of March, it represents so many different things to so many people. You know, for me, it represents daylight saving time because I like long days. I love to take walks with my kids in the evening and for us to just get out and play. You know, to my husband, it represents ACC basketball. To all you sports fans out there, you know, it means basketball game after basketball game and more basketball games. So that's kind of what people look forward to for March. For my children, it means spring break. Where we going, what we're going to do, because they are excited about getting a little bit of time out of school. For many, it represents Resurrection Sunday for all believers. You know, we all celebrate this month. We celebrate Easter. And number 5 to me is March represents new beginnings, new life. And what most people don't realize is on the original Roman calendar, March was actually the first month of the year. Don't know what happened in between. I'm not a big history buff to figure all that out. I just thought it was interesting to know that March was the first month of the year. And it represented a new beginning. And when I think of spring, the main thing is, you know, winter has ended. It's time, you know, flowers budding and leaves are coming out on trees, changing colors, birds are chirping. You know, winter has ended. The cold, the dead, the dead grass, all that's going away, and new life is coming into the new season. So that gets me excited. And when we look at nature, I think nature represents so much about life in general. And today what we're going to talk about is not just flowers and birds. We're going to talk about what needs to spring forward in your own life, in your own family, your own finances, your own business, your own goals. What can spring forward? What can be a new beginning for you right now? You know, in January, everyone's so excited about setting New Year's resolutions and what I'm going to do. And, you know, so many of those people have already forgotten by now what they were supposed to do. They don't even remember what their goals were. And what happens, we get lulled to sleep and March comes in and we've forgotten about everything we said was important to us. And then what happens is we literally coast through the rest of the year. Then it's November, December, and you're excited about setting New Year's resolutions for the next year. And you've wasted so much time that you could have had newness in your life, so much time to become what you want to be, so much time to do the things that you said you always wanted to do. But what happens is we just let another year pass by. We let another new year start, spring pass, you know, the seasons have all changed, and nothing's really changed in your life. And you guys know I'm a scholar. I like to look up stuff. So I looked up the definition of spring. And of course, you know, you find 20, 25 different definitions, some of which I need a translator for because I don't really understand. But I found a couple that I want to share with you guys. The first one is a metal elastic device that returns to its original shape or position when pushed, pulled, or pressed. And to me, I like to simplify stuff. That's like a mattress spring. You know, you got kids or even some adults who jump on the bed, you know how the springs, you know, kind of do their thing. You know, to me that represents resilience. You know, the mattress isn't supposed to give all the way. If so, you need a new one. It's supposed to have some bounce back. You know, it's supposed to spring back when you get up. If your mattress stays flat when you're on it, that's a good indication you need a new one. Good indication that you might have some back challenges if you don't fix that. So, you know, you want something that's going to spring back, that's going to be resilient, have some resilience with it. Number 2 was a leap, a light self-propelled movement upward or forwards. It gives something that can be stretched. And I like to think of a rubber band. You know, something that can stretch. And, you know, they always say it returns back to its form, but we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. It never goes back to the original form, but it does have some gift. So, you know, when you look at it, if you pull it out, it springs back. It springs back once you release it. So I like to call that stretch. Another thing is, you know, the season of growth. Number 3, you know, the new emergence of buds. It's a season of growth. So when we look at spring and we take those definitions and we round them all out, we have resilience, we have stretching, and we have growth. And those words, when you first look at them, they're not necessarily like fun words. Because in order to be resilient, that means you have to go through something. You have to be able to overcome something. You have to be able to press past something. You have to be able to become something. Resilience isn't just like a easy word. That means you've been up against some stuff. And when we look at our lives, let's take winter, for instance. Winter can be tough. And let's not just look at it from a snow or, weather. Let's think about the winters of our life. A lot of us are overcoming some stuff. I sit down with women and men all the time who are overcoming marriage challenges. Finances are tough. Everyone knows what's going on in this economy. In the winter time is when you're trying to figure out how you're going to make it, how you're going to pay your bills. Or I opened up an envelope from a company and it was a $450 heating bill. I wasn't excited about that, but you know what? It had to be paid because I want to keep my house warm. That wasn't in the budget. So if you're in a winter and you have things like that coming about, the things that you don't expect, I didn't predict a $500 bill. You don't predict a $500 light bill. You don't predict having to take your children to the doctor. You don't predict those types of things. So you have winters in your life that you got to be resilient to, that you can't allow to keep you or take you off your course. Just because I got a $458 to be specific, bill for my heat, that had absolutely nothing else to do with my children wanting to eat. I could sit and mope and cry about paying all this extra money, or either I can just say, okay, we need to take care of that and move on to the next things. And you can say, well, how is that resilient? Because I remember a day when a $458 any type of bill would have jacked my budget up so much that we'd have been trying to figure out how we're going to eat, where the gas is going to come from. So now I look at it as I had to be resilient through those tough times. So now when situations come up or things that you don't expect, I can still spring back. And for you, you know what your thing is. Maybe it's not money. Maybe you have over your bank accounts are just flowing. So money is not your thing. Maybe it's your health. Maybe you've had some winter of overcoming some health challenges. Or some medical bills, or either just fatigue. I know because sometimes during the winter, you don't get as much exercise naturally as you do during the summer. So, your body's tired. So what are you having to spring back from? What are you having to develop what have you had to develop some resilience against to come into a new season? And I want you to think what that is for you and write that down, because every one of us on a different journey. Every one of us have different things that we have to overcome to get to that next season. Every one of us have things that are challenges or situations that are pressing. We look around and it's so easy to think that you're the only person who has a sad song to sing. But everybody in this room has their own bucket of tears. And we all can sing a sad song about something. And for someone who's saying they're not pressing or overcoming something, or they're not becoming better or not having to do something, I don't really believe much about what they have to say, because they are not even aware of what they're in the process of doing or what they're in the process of becoming. After resilience, we talked about stretching. When you get ready to exercise, or you're about to run a marathon, or you're about to get on the cross trainer, they always recommend you stretch. And so sometimes stretching before is a good thing. You're getting your muscles limber, and I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what all the terminology is. I know they say you got to get stuff flowing through the muscles so they don't cramp up and all that other stuff. But I know they always tell you it's vitally important. Let's take that away from the gym and let's take it to our life. Every one of us have things that we want to accomplish, things that we want to do this year that maybe we didn't do last year. We all have things on our dream list, our wish list, things we want to do, things we want to become, places we want to see, things we want to provide for our children that we may not have had. And so in order to be able to do that, you're going to have to stretch. Unless you stretch from where you are in the direction of where you're going, you're going to always have what you have. So then the question then becomes if what you're having is working for you. Are you content with where you are in your life right now, be it in your family, your finance? Are you content? If you are content, that's fine. I'm not mad at you. Stay where you are. That's fine. You have a right to be right where you are. But if you're like me, who have so much more I want to do, so many more lives I want to impact, I have to constantly live my life in a state of stretching. And stretching doesn't always feel good. And I've worked with my trainer, and he'll pull my arms back, and I'm thinking this is it. And he'll say, take a deep breath. And then he pulls them back further, and he'll say, take a deep breath. And I'm like, okay, are you trying to dislocate something? But once I've stretched to the fullest capacity that I thought I could, it's amazing how you can take a breather and go further. If I had started here, I never would have thought I could have gotten to that other position. But I had to stretch from one level to show myself I could, to get to another level to show I could do more, to get to another level. But unless you're in the process of stretching, you don't know. And so many people, in whatever season of life that they're in, they're afraid. Because if I stretch, I might be able to prove to somebody else outside of myself that I really can do more. So if I realize I can do more, what am I going to do with what I know to do? So now I'm responsible. So now I've proven that I'm capable. So now there's a whole different expectation of who I am and what I'm supposed to be. So it's like, do I stretch or do I not? What's more painful? To live in a state of not knowing and just being okay, or to stretch to see? And I'm just one of those ones, let's go for it. Got one life. If we're not going to stretch, if I'm not going to pull, and sometimes, the stretching seems like you're going the other direction. But I like to think about a bow and an arrow. I think I said that right. Yeah, a bow and arrow. You know how when you come back, and y'all can correct me, if you have a bow and an arrow and you're focusing on the target, you know how you have to pull it back? And sometimes you ever seen anyone pulling, and they're pulling so hard it's shaking? The problem is most of us get right here, or we've heard enough. We have enough madness going on in our life, but if I let go, I don't know what's going to happen. If I let go, I don't know what's waiting on the other side. So they just stand here shaken, frustrated, angry, mad, comparing their journey, sitting here stretched back. My thoughts are, why not let go? First of all, you get the release, you get the relief, and then you position yourself for whatever is out there that's waiting for you. Be it in your business. What can you achieve? That business that you have on the inside that you wanted to start, but you've been afraid? Let it go. Why not? Your family. The communication's been a little shaky. You know what? Why not let it go and take the first step and see how you can bridge the communication gap? Why stand here hurting? Because what happens so often, you're in this position and it's painful. But then you've been there for so long that it just gets normal. You've been there for so long that this now becomes your state of mind. You've been there and you're just there. You're just there. And you're looking at everybody else who's propelled ahead of you. You're looking at everybody else and you're looking at where they are. And you're wondering what's wrong with you. We're going to take a quick break. And for those of you who are viewing, you're going to get some information about the next Coffee with Keisha on how you can join us and find out a little bit more about what it is we do and how we do it. So if I got your attention and you want to know where we're going with this, make sure you tune back in. See you in a moment.
Coffee with Keisha is intimate moments of conversation with coffee and friends. It's a time of self-reflection, guidance, and direction for your journey. It's about women empowering women to become their very best. And it's all free of charge. We hope to see you at the next Coffee with Keisha.
We just finished talking about stretching, and it's not always fun. It doesn't always feel good, but it's necessary. You can't get to a new level in anything unless you stretch. You can't become a better parent unless you stretch. You can't become a better spouse unless you stretch. So you have to just stretch no matter what it feels like. Because you know what you have. You know how it feels to be where you are. Unless you're stretching or you have your eyes fixed or focused on something else or more, then this is just what it is. And I look at it like I already know what I have. I need to know what's more. What more is there to this? And number 3, we talked about spring, growth. Growth. When I think about growth, I think about the young ladies that's joining us that's expecting. You know what? She's growing. A seed was planted. And now a life will be here in just a few short months. That's an example of growth. And we can physically see that. We can see that. We can see she's very pregnant, beautiful and pregnant, but we can see that. So then I say, let's turn this back on ourselves. Are you growing? No, I'm not carrying a child and I'm not pregnant, but I'd like to think I live in a state of always growing. Because either, you know, like a tomato on a vine, I know you've heard it, it's either ripening or it's rotting. Growing or it's dying. That ain't deep. That's not difficult. It's either ripening or it's rotting. Think about it. Now take a look in the mirror at you. Are you ripening or are you rotting? And if you have to think too hard about that, my guess is you're on the other side. And if you don't know, all I got to do is ask the people who know you. Ask your children. Ask your manager. You're either ripening or you're rotting. Think about that a minute. And if you don't know the answer, I guess this spring you need to figure out what do you need to do to ripen up some. Okay, maybe it is cut off the TV a little bit or a whole lot. Maybe it is pick up a book. Maybe it is, you know, do some research. Maybe it is take a couple classes. You know, I know people, people who I deal with some clients who have anger management issues. You know what? If that's hurting you and that's making you rotten some on this, then go take some classes. Because, so often we allow pride and what we think other people think of us and what other folks are saying hinder us from ripening to our full potential. You think about this spring, lots of people plant. I have a friend of mine, she does the little tomato plants and she plants all the seasonings. She knows all this stuff. I don't know what you put basil in versus tarragon and all this stuff. I don't know. I just ask her and she bags it up for me and she tells me, put this in your brown rice, put this in your, I'm like, thank you. So I can do that. But you go to her house and she got all these little pots of stuff growing. Tomato, all of it legal. Tomatoes, seasonings, and all this other stuff. And she knows what she's doing with it. And she's growing them. The tomatoes are going to ripen. She's excited because she started out with little bitty seeds, but she knows for the winter when she's cooking her soups and making her sauces, she's got all the things that ripened and matured right there. She can see the end result. Now, let's look in the mirror. At the end of this year, I'll see your results too. You may not be in a pot, but yes, you are. What's happening? Does your flower smell like fertilizer? I just want to be one of those plants that, the Miracle Grow. My dad's a landscaper, so he knew about all the flowers, and there were certain things he put Miracle Grow on because he could speed them up, and they'd be so much brighter. They'd be so much prettier. They would stand out. Those were his showpiece flower areas. I want to be a showpiece. I want to be that. So I have to ripen. I have to make sure I'm reading. I have to make sure I'm studying. In our business, we're cutting edge. The only way I stay cutting edge is to stay ahead. So if I want to ripen in my business, then I need to make sure I'm researching now what's going to happen 6 months from now. I need to be ripening as a parent. I have 3 awesome kids. My son's 11, my daughter's 9, and I have another daughter who's 5. They are awesome kids, but they also work me. There are some days I say that they're dad's children because they couldn't have come from me. That type of behavior, those attitudes, I know. I don't see any of me in that. So I know then those are the days they're acting like their daddy. But you know what? I want to ripen as a parent. I want to make sure that my kids know that I really do love them unconditionally. I want them to really do feel secure. I really do want them to be leaders and not followers, which means they have to have a good self-esteem. So I have to ripen in that area. There are some days that if I'm not careful, I slip toward the rotting. And a lot of times it's not their fault. But because I spend so much time focusing on the ripening, I recognize when I'm starting to smell. Now, everybody won't admit that. but I'm just a work in progress. So I don't have any issues saying, okay, I shouldn't have snapped. That has nothing to do with her. That's because I'm tired. That has nothing to do, her asking me for that peanut butter sandwich and me acting like it was the end of the world was not her fault. But as a parent, that's because I'm reading enough parenting books to make sure that even when I miss it, which we all do, I recognize it. The problem is so many of us live in the rotting state that we don't recognize ripening. We don't know we smell. We don't know there's no good there. We don't know there's no life there. We don't realize there's nothing there to feed or to benefit anybody else, because that's all you know. So you need to make sure you're ripening. So we talked about spring. We talked about resilience. We talked about toughness, mental toughness, emotional toughness. We talked about stretching, how it's not always comfortable, but that is necessary. And we talked about growth. And I'm not talking about just, for wrong reasons growth. I'm talking growth because it's what you desire and it's moving you closer to what you want to accomplish. Okay, now that we have all those things lined out, the next question is, where do you start? How do you start? It's spring. It's already March, okay? What happens? My charge to you is start where you are. So you haven't planted the seeds. Go get you a bag. So you hadn't, my grandfather was a farmer, so he would always save the seeds from the fruit from the previous year and plant them. Come on now. Go get you some seeds. Don't make it difficult. Start where you are, because a season has to change inside of you. You decide when it's spring. Nobody tells you that it's not. You decide if you're going to take advantage of this. You decide if this is going to be your planting time. You decide if you're going to do what you need to do so there can be a change inside of you. Because the question is, this is planting time. This is, farmers are planting, tobacco's going in the ground, seed, everything you look out there, cotton, anything, cucumbers. I know it's almost time. We'll be getting strawberries in a little bit. That I love to go out and go strawberry picking. But you're getting prepped for that now. The land is being prepared now. And I'm not a farmer, so if my dates and things are off, y'all know, stay with me. Just get the point. Get the point. Because if you don't start the planting now, then where are you going to be when it's harvest time? When the season changes again and it's time to get the crops, where are you going to be? Are you going to be looking at everybody else who bringing in their seeds, their harvest, their crops, the people who have gotten a new promotion on their job and you're kind of ticked off about it because they've been coming in early, they've been working late, and they've been accountable. Are you going to be mad at someone that you talked to last year whose marriage was jacked up and now they're talking about they're in love again? You're going to be mad when it's harvest time for that? You're going to be mad when you're listening to someone that you've been hanging out with and you've been boys or you've been girls all these years and now they have got a clear perspective on what they want to do. Are you going to be watching them? Because, harvest time is going to come. Spring, the point of spring is harvest. Are you going to be angry at someone who's a little more organized, a little more focused? Because y'all used to could just, at the drop of the dime, just get up and go and not do anything, not have a schedule and just kind of hang out all day. But now this person says, what, I got to be accountable to myself and to my family. So they're working their life with a calendar. So are you going to be watching them? Number 2, are you going to be waiting? You're going to wait to see who's going to give you some of what they got. Because there's always somebody, well, I didn't plant, but can I get a bucket? Can you spare me a little bit? Can I get a little change? They didn't want to do what they needed to do, but they want a little bit of yours. Or number 3, which is where I hope I find you. You're going to be working at harvest time because you've done so much in this spring season to make sure that you are better, that you are that you're in a different place, that you have more going on for you than you had when you started. So you're excited about what you planted. Working. So it's harvest time and you're working because, I've been reading books. My attitude's changing. My finances are changing. My marriage is changing. So you're working because you're expecting a humongous harvest because of the seeds you planted this spring. So you're either going to be watching, you're going to be waiting, or you're going to be working. And if you don't make a choice, you get one of them by default. And I'm not going to tell you which one that is. So as we're talking about spring and what it means, you know, the secret to a rich life is having more beginnings than endings. And before you say, you know, I know how to start something, I just don't know how to finish. Everything you start, it has to stop. You might have finished it beforehand. You know, people say, you know, I'm a strong starter, but I don't finish anything. Yeah, you did. You just finished it prematurely. You started exercising in January and you haven't been back to the gym since the second week of January. You stopped. It had an ending. It was just premature because you still got 40 pounds to go. So you had a start and a stop. The thing is to have the beginnings position so you can finish strong. Not finish half-heartedly or faint-heartedly, but finishing strong. You know, in the spring, you have to realize these are the seeds that you're planting now to become that man or woman that lives in your dreams. You know, everybody has an image of what they want to be when they grow up. I call it that. You know, everyone has an idea of what they want to do, you know, how they want to look, how they want to feel. And it's in your mind. You plant the seed to become that person by what you're doing right now. You determine how close you're going to be to that image right now. So you know, you got to be resilient. I'm going to recap really quick for you because life happens and you got to bounce back. Nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do about it. 2, you got to stretch. You got to be like that rubber band and determine that when it comes back, it's not going back to where it started. You got to stretch. Number 3, you got to determine to grow. You got to grow on purpose. Growth doesn't just happen. The sky's not going to open and fall. You got to grow on purpose. And what I charge you to do today is do not let another season pass you by and you have a bucket of unplanted seeds sitting in your garage.